So hi, I'm Johnny, and as the title suggests, today we're going to be discussing how to and how not to build a market-leading embedded analytics solution. But why am I talking to you about this today? Well, throughout my career, I've had a range of different data roles, including being part of the Looker go-to-market team at Google Cloud. But for the last 2 years, I've been looking after analytics and BI at PrimaryBid. And during that time, the key focus has been on building out embedded analytics products. And today, I want to share some of the key learnings from that process with you all. We're going to kick off with a quick exercise. So I want you all to spend 30 seconds thinking about what are your favorite examples of embedded analytics. So you may be wondering, what exactly do I mean by embedded analytics? Well, let's keep it simple. It's anywhere you access analytics outside of a specialized BI or data tool. So it could be at work, the websites you access, the SaaS platforms you use. It could be from your personal life, the apps you have on your phone that contain analytics. Don't worry, not going to pick on anyone in the audience, but have a think for 30 seconds. What are your favorite examples and why are they your favorites? Hopefully you've all had something that's popped into your head, and maybe you did think about some of those tools that you use at work. So here we've got Monte Carlo, Splunk, Google Cloud Platform. All of those have really useful analytic elements. Or maybe your brain did go to some of the apps you have on your phone. So banking apps like Monzo, exercise apps like Strava, they also have great embedded analytic elements. Or maybe you actually thought a little bit more outside of the box, stuff that you wouldn't even immediately consider to be embedded analytics. So your statistics in Wordle, or my personal favorite, Spotify's awesome annual wrapped analytics campaign. Now, if we think about these examples in a bit more detail, we can pretty quickly start to identify their key features. So the examples on the left are from tools that you need to look at in order to do your job. And as such, they're largely defined by what I'm going to call B2B essentials. So they're rich with data, there's a premium on accuracy, security is paramount, and their value comes in the fact that they're real-time or near real-time. But as we move across to the right-hand side, these are examples that you have absolutely no need to look at. There's no reason to view your Wordle statistics or your Spotify Wrapped, apart from the fact it's great fun. And therefore, these examples are more defined by what I'm labeling B2C UX principles. So they're minimalist, they don't try to overwhelm you with data, they're easy to understand, they're attractive, and they're easy to interact with. You know, you don't need a manual or a handbook to check your Wordle statistics. Now imagine tomorrow you were asked to go away and build a market-leading embedded analytics solution. Well, those B2B essentials on the left-hand side are exactly that. They are essential. But in 2024, they're also nothing more than table stakes. They alone are not enough to make your solution market-leading. To be market-leading, to be best in class, you need to be focusing just as heavily on those UX principles on the right. And we're going to discuss in a little bit more detail what it means to be best in class. But before we do, let's take a step back and ask why even bother? Why does it matter whether or not your embedded analytics are best in class or just passable? And the answer is because there's a ton of money involved in it. It's really valuable. And companies typically realize that value in one of two ways: explicit monetization or implicit monetization. So Strava is an example of explicit monetization. So they have two plans, free and paid. Free gives you access to activity monitoring, so it can track when you're running, and some of the social networking aspects of the app. But to unlock full leaderboards, dashboards, other key metrics, you need the paid plan. And Strava does that very, very well. So millions of people are prepared to pay £50 every year for that privilege. Pretty straightforward. On the other hand, Spotify are in the implicit monetization camp. They give away wrapped analytics to anyone who's an existing Spotify subscriber, i.e. you're not explicitly paying extra for the analytics. The idea being that Wrapped makes Spotify that much better a product and that much more differentiated from its competitors. And it works. Every year it's a huge social media phenomenon, and every year it leads to a massive surge in new signups. So whether it's explicitly or implicitly, there's a ton of money involved in getting your embedded analytics right. So we've touched on what it means to be best in class. We'll go and explore that in much more detail. We've established why you want to be best in class. Now I'm going to shift gears and introduce PrimaryBid's use case, my use case for embedded analytics. Some of you may be very familiar with PrimaryBid, others less so. So let me play you a video that's going to give you a high-level intro. Does that have sound? No. Let me try again.
Public markets exist to give
Right.
companies
There's
access
no
to
sound.
widest
The
sources of
voiceover on this
financing
is both a
and
nicer
provide
voice
investors
and
with the opportunity to participate in their
Okay, good
growth. But while retail investors are a mainstay of secondary market activity, for too long, individuals have been unable to participate in fundraising events in the primary markets, such as IPOs, follow-ons, and bonds. That meant public companies have missed out on access to large pools of capital and ongoing liquidity, and individuals have been unable to participate in public company investment opportunities. Until now. PrimaryBid has changed the way that public companies raise capital by unlocking the smart inclusion of individuals alongside institutions. We have delivered over 300 fundraisings in the UK and EU using proprietary technology, key partnerships, and tireless advocacy for fairer, more inclusive markets. We've led regulatory change in our industry, making capital markets more inclusive for individual investors. And we've only just begun.
Awesome. So that's the high-level intro to PrimaryBid. Now let's double-click on what our exact embedded analytics requirements were. So very simply, for a company who's IPOing, we need to show their CEO, CFO, etc., information on which individuals are registering to participate in their IPO in the run-up to that IPO, how many shares they're requesting during the IPO, and then how those shares are going to be allocated, so who gets the shares once the IPO is finished. Why is that important? Well, it allows these senior execs to take action in real time, to pull levers to increase demand or decrease demand. That could be the difference between a successful IPO or a failure. What's more, it also allows them greater flexibility on how they hand out these shares. So if you think about Reddit's IPO earlier this year, they wanted top Redditors to get first dibs on shares. So they ended up allocating out shares based on engagement metrics like investors' Reddit karma points. As you can probably imagine, having robust real-time analytics is crucial to making those kind of decisions accurately and fairly. So that's what we needed to build. The next question was, what technologies could help us build it? And just like with many other areas of a data stack, and just as you would have seen over the last 2 days here, there was certainly no shortage of choice. We ended up talking to a lot of these companies and testing out a lot of these tools. And we came away with 2 key learnings. Key learning number 1, those B2B essentials really are just table stakes. And that's not to say all these companies do it the same, or all these companies are as good at it as each other. Far from it. But what it is saying is if you're a vendor and you're not getting these essentials right, you might as well be packing up your bags and going home. Key learning number 2. When we focused our assessment on those B2C UX principles, there was a ton of variation in terms of what was being offered. Not all tools are created equal. And it's that variation where we'll focus for the rest of today. Specifically, when we came to assessing tools on these UX ideas, we found it helpful to do so and to look at them in terms of this key trade-off. So on one axis, you have the ability to create fantastic UX. So right down at the bottom, you build something that looks and feels like a boring dashboard, to at the top, something that has all the awesome UX we associate with Strava or with Spotify. The other axis is then how quick and how easy it is to build that UX. And that was actually particularly important for our use case. Every single one of those IPOs requires specific bespoke analytics, segmenting by Reddit karma points or their equivalent. And so being able to build those outputs in minutes rather than days was essential. And for us, that meant having to avoid full software engineering workflows. We couldn't have completely custom front ends that required days and weeks to update when necessary. So in this framework, we're looking for the magic tool that sits in the top right-hand corner. You can build fantastic UX, and you can build it very easily. But actually, when we came to assess the tools on the market, we found they mainly fitted into one of two other corners. So in the bottom right, you have iframe solutions. So this is where you build a BI-style dashboard in a BI-style tool, and then you embed it into a window in your product. Very quick and easy for the data team to build and to iterate, typically not particularly beautiful. Then in the top right-hand corner, you have API-based solutions. So here you build exactly the front end you want, and then you call the underlying data and analytics via APIs. Lots of flexibility, you can create fantastic UX, but it's fully reliant on having front-end software engineers own that process. Now, to emphasize this point, let's start adding a couple of vendors to this chart. So let's begin with Looker. I really like Looker. I have fond memories of working there, and it was what we were using successfully for internal analytics at PrimaryBid. So the natural place for us to start. And when we consider their embedded analytics offering, there's two options. Number one, the iframe. You take your Looker dashboard, you embed it into your product. Again, really quick and easy for us to build, great on that dimension, doesn't have the UX flexibility that we were looking for. Option number two is to use the Looker API. And with this, you can build some amazing things. Here's an example of the Fox Sports app, super cool, super flexible, completely reliant on those engineering processes. I can't build that, I can't update that. So for us, neither of those were quite the sweet spot. We then expanded our search to other vendors in the market. I'm not going to put all the ones we talked to up on this list, but I will highlight a couple that will talk to some of the key trends we saw. So in the iframe space, there's a bunch of internal BI vendors that also have embedded offerings. So ThoughtSpot, Tableau, others have iframe solutions. Arguably, they look and feel a little bit better out of the box. Arguably, there's a little bit more flexibility there. But still, you're ending up with a pretty traditional BI dashboard feel. In general, we do see the trend that they're spending a lot of energy trying to give you that additional flexibility to create more premium look and feel of what you build. Then on the other end of the spectrum, there's also a bunch of players in that top left-hand corner. Ones that are allowing you to create that fully customized UX. Sisense are definitely prominent in that space. Again, you can build some fantastic things. Again, fully reliant on your software engineers. Unsurprisingly, but interestingly, they're also spending a lot of time and energy trying to shift right on this graph, whether that's through pre-made components, software development kits, or most recently, AI code generation. They're doing as much as they can to reduce the barriers to entry for building solutions this way. In the end, the tool that we found that was the best fit for us was from a company called Omni. I'm not from Omni, I'm not going to give you the full sales pitch, but I will briefly mention a few of the things it did that made it the right fit for us. So firstly, although it was an iframe solution, it looked and felt great out of the box. It was remarkably easy to create analytics that seamlessly fit in with our existing products. It was then also very easy to add Markdown directly to the dashboard, which was a layer of flexibility in between basic dashboard visuals and fully custom front ends. It also has DuckDB behind the scenes, so it's very quick to use, and therefore when you're interacting with it, it feels more like a native app and less like an embedded iframe. And finally, it ticked all the boxes on those B2B table stake essentials that we mentioned earlier. As you can see, it's definitely not perfectly in that top right-hand corner. You're never going to get the flexibility of the UX solutions, with an iframe one, but it was a very nice sweet spot for us. Before I move on, I want to make 2 points. Point 1, Omni won't be the right solution for all use cases. You may have requirements or constraints that mean Looker, Sisense, Tableau, any one of these other tools will be the better option for you. But what I will say is that as the requirements for being best in class continue to evolve, this trade-off, the ease and the speed to build fantastic UX, is only becoming more important. Therefore, it wouldn't surprise me to find other data teams who are looking to build data products reach the same conclusions we did. Point number 2, there are also a bunch of embedded analytics specialists, so tools that don't have any internal BI offering, just focused on the external market, who have come into this space and are looking to play in that top right-hand quadrant. So easy to use, great to look at. In general, we did find those solutions to be underpowered on some of those essentials, data governance, data security. But they're definitely worth bearing in mind based on your use case, based on your setup, and they do seem to be getting more well-rounded year on year. Cool. Before we wrap up, I want to show you some actual screenshots from our product. And we're going to start with the 3 core analytics screens that accompany every IPO. So the first is for before an IPO, so tracking the individuals who are registering their interest to participate. Then we have a screen for during the IPO, seeing which of these individuals have actually submitted demand for shares and how many they're requesting. And then finally a screen for at the end of the IPO where you can see who you're actually handing out the shares to. Those 3 are pretty standard for all IPOs, but here's where it starts to get a little more interesting. Accompanying these are our bespoke company-specific analytics that focus in on the different audiences participating in the IPO. So your Redditors or their equivalent. And the analytics here can range from the pretty straightforward to the more complex. Our ability to build these custom analytics complete with company branding is a huge differentiator for us compared to what our competitors can offer. And the fact that we can create one of these in 30 to 60 minutes means it's feasible for us to do these at scale, even on tight timelines. When necessary, it's also possible for us to retheme all of our dashboard suite or add further specific analytic components. If we think back to those examples right at the start of the presentation, let's be clear, this definitely isn't Spotify Wrapped levels of UX. But those same UX principles have been key to everything we've built. How can we make sure our analytics is engaging, clear, easy to use, and attractive? And the result has been we've had great feedback on how valuable and how easy to understand these bespoke analytic outputs are, meaning they definitely do represent a huge competitive advantage for us. Last slide, and let's finish with a quick recap. So if you're building an embedded analytics solution, there'll be 3 questions that you're consciously or subconsciously asking yourself. The first is why, the second is what, and the third is how. We've touched upon the why, the different monetization strategies, and the huge value that good embedded analytics can bring. We've also discussed the how, the pros and cons of the different technologies you may choose to use. But I actually think that the key takeaway from today is to make sure you're thinking fully about the what. What is it that you're actually wanting to provide to the end user? And when most companies go through this process, they spend a lot of time thinking about what are the logistics and what is the exact data I want to share. Said another way, what can I do to provide secure, accurate, rich, real-time data? The essentials. They then spend a lot less time thinking about what is the simplest way to convey this information and what can we do to make it look and feel fantastic. And so if you take anything away from today's talk, it's to not underestimate the value of these 2 last steps. Because to be best in class, it's no longer enough to just provide those essentials. If you want to extract maximum value from your embedded analytics, you need to be focusing more on user experience than ever before. Cool. So thank you very much. I think hopefully we've got a few minutes for questions. Yeah. Any questions? Oh.
Thanks, Johnny. Great presentation. You said vendors are looking to move more towards that upper right-hand quadrant. How do you see in the next 2-3 years the future of as nice UX as possible with as little engineering as possible?
So sorry, was the question how do I see it evolving and how do I see people moving towards that quadrant?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think as we kind of showed on that chart, people are coming into that quadrant from two different directions. I think the iframe-based solutions, that's a more gradual evolution that's been happening over the last 20 plus years. Trying to give you more visualizations, more flexibility to move things around, to label things, to color things. And I think we'll continue to see that grow. And every time new competitors come into that space, it also inspires the existing players to improve. I think what's going to be particularly interesting is watching the API solutions move across. And I think, there's a part of me that says AI is going to play a huge role there. Anyone who's been playing around, with AI in their data stack will know that building front ends is one place where AI can do quite a good job, at least on the surface. But where it's always going to be more complicated is, yes, it may be able to build you something that looks nice. Can it do the authentication, the security, the governance, all of that piece? So it's going to be exciting to see how things do converge. Awesome. Cool. Thank you.